You think I'd crumble? Watch me. Emily whispered to herself as she stood outside the sleek glass doors of the prenatal clinic, sunlight bouncing off the polished floors and reflecting in the shimmering surfaces around her. The corridor echoed with hurried footsteps, the sound of David's laughter mingling with the tapping of high heels on tile as he guided his mistress ahead of him. Emily's pulse raced, but her posture remained perfect, shoulders back, chin lifted. The flash of a wedding photo on her phone screen reminded her of happier times, the warmth of their first apartment, the scent of her favorite candle burning during quiet nights. She swallowed hard, recalling the last dinner they shared, the bitterness of empty conversations, the sting of messages left unanswered. Her hand instinctively brushed the ring she had removed from her finger weeks ago, now tucked safely in her drawer, a relic of promises broken. Emily took a slow, deliberate breath, the crisp autumn air filling her lungs, carrying a hint of roasted coffee from the café she had opened, a sanctuary she had built for herself in the weeks since the divorce. Every detail of her new life seemed sharper, brighter, more defined, the clink of mugs, the gentle hum of morning traffic outside, the aroma of fresh pastries mingling with brewed espresso, reminding her that she was reclaiming her power one small victory at a time. She stepped forward, the echo of her heels soft yet deliberate, each step measured, composed, a silent defiance to the chaos unfolding just meters away. Her eyes caught the fleeting glance of a stranger leaning against a far wall, someone who would unknowingly play a pivotal role in her resurgence, his calm presence a stark contrast to the frenetic energy surrounding David. Emily's lips curved into a subtle smile, not a smile of relief, not a smile of joy, but one of anticipation, of control, of the quiet storm gathering within her. The camera might have seen only the surface, the sleek clinic, the polished floors, the hurried couple, but Emily's mind raced with strategies, scenarios, small wins, and the inevitable confrontation looming in the near future. As the doors closed, behind David and his companion, she allowed herself a single, deep exhale, feeling the tension leave her shoulders, replaced by a steady, unyielding determination. In that moment, Emily Carter was no longer the woman who had been hurt, ignored, or humiliated. She was a force in waiting, observing, calculating, ready to reclaim not just her dignity, but her narrative, her life, and ultimately, the power that had been quietly accumulating around her. The scene ends as she steps onto the sunlit sidewalk, eyes forward, heart steady, the sounds of the city a symphony to her awakening, leaving the viewer with a promise of a story that is far from over, a battle of wits and composure just beginning. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the large café windows as Emily arranged fresh pastries on the counter, the warm scent of roasted coffee beans mingling with the crisp autumn air drifting in from the street. She adjusted the small stack of menus, her fingers brushing over the polished wood with a sense of care and pride, each detail meticulously set, a reflection of the life she was rebuilding. The bell above the door jingled occasionally as the first customers trickled in, their voices a gentle murmur, creating a comforting rhythm that contrasted sharply with the chaos of the previous day. Emily moved gracefully between tables, pouring cappuccinos and taking orders, her mind alert yet calm, calculating every possible move in the quiet aftermath of her divorce. The sunlight caught in her hair, illuminating strands of gold, and she allowed herself a small smile, not of relief, but of determination. She remembered the feeling of helplessness, of walking out of the courthouse with nothing but a folder of papers and a pounding heart, and how each morning since then had become a small victory, a reclaiming of autonomy and dignity. As she wiped down a table, her gaze drifted to a man sitting alone in the corner, absorbed in a notebook, a laptop open beside him. He had an air of quiet authority, the kind of presence that made one aware without demanding attention, and Emily sensed that their paths were destined to cross meaningfully. The way he observed the café, noting details without intrusion, intrigued her, and she found herself curious about the layers beneath his composed exterior. While she continued her morning routine, Emily's thoughts wandered briefly to David, to the image of him and his mistress, leaving the clinic the day before, their laughter echoing in her memory. Instead of resentment, she felt a controlled fire, a drive to build something stronger, a life that could not be diminished by anyone else's actions. Each espresso she poured, each croissant she plated, became a symbol of resilience, and she took pride in the ordinary yet meaningful victories of a day spent shaping her own narrative. Customers came and went, the café filling with warmth and conversation, and Emily moved among them with ease, her focus unshaken, every movement a testament to regained control. She stole a glance at the man in the corner again, noticing how he jotted notes and occasionally looked up to observe the space, his eyes sharp but not intrusive, suggesting intelligence and a patience that matched her own careful planning. In the quiet moments between serving customers, she considered her next steps, the upcoming events where she might encounter David, and how she could use her composure to turn expectations on their head. Emily's mind raced through scenarios, planning not from anger but from strategy, knowing that the real power lay in calm, measured action rather than overt confrontation. As the morning light shifted and the café began to fill with the lunch crowd, Emily felt a surge of confidence, a recognition that she was no longer defined by past hurts, but by her current strength and vision for the future. The man in the corner finally closed his notebook and approached the counter, introducing himself with a calm, assured tone, initiating a conversation that promised opportunities Emily had only begun to imagine. The scene closed with the café bustling around them, Emily standing poised, radiant in her quiet authority, the camera lingering on her face as a subtle, confident smile played across her lips, signaling the beginning of a story where she was not merely a participant, but the author of her own destiny. The gala hall sparkled with chandeliers, reflecting off polished marble floors as Emily entered, her presence commanding yet understated, a contrast to the flamboyance surrounding her. Guests whispered and paused mid-step, drawn to her calm composure and the elegance of her black gown with subtle gold accents that caught the light with every movement. Across the room, David stood with his companion, his posture proud, laughter casual, unaware that the balance of power had shifted. Emily's eyes scanned the room, noting details with a strategist's precision, every interaction, every glance, every shift in energy registering in her mind. Alexander Blake stood beside her, a quiet sentinel whose presence exuded authority and subtle influence, his hand gently resting on the back of a chair, an unspoken signal of support. As Emily navigated through clusters of guests, she exchanged polite nods and soft smiles, each gesture calculated, a display of control that made the room sense, without words, that she had arrived fully in command of herself. The band began to play a soft melody, and Emily found a vantage point that allowed her to observe David closely, noting the ease with which he attempted to maintain appearances, the forced smiles, the flickers of unease when he sensed the quiet power radiating from her. When he finally noticed her standing there, their eyes met, and a subtle shiver of recognition passed through him, a realization that the dynamics had irrevocably changed. The camera might linger on her calm demeanor, the slight curl of her lips, the glint in her eyes that spoke of preparation and foresight. She approached with measured steps, Alexander subtly guiding her path, and the whispers in the room shifted as more guests became aware of her presence. David tried to engage in conversation, but the charm that once held sway over the room now faltered, as Emily answered with composed, thoughtful words, each one establishing her authority and self-possession. The moment stretched, the tension palpable, yet Emily never rushed, allowing the suspense to build, the audience aware that a revelation was imminent. Alexander's subtle nod was all the confirmation she needed, a quiet acknowledgement of readiness. At the height of the interaction, she revealed his identity to the nearest group of colleagues, a whisper that traveled quickly, sending ripples through the room as realization dawned on David and the onlookers alike. The shift in attention was undeniable, the power dynamics realigned in a silent but unmistakable declaration. Emily allowed herself a measured smile, a small but victorious expression of dignity reclaimed, her eyes holding the quiet satisfaction of someone who has not only survived but risen above. The scene closed with her standing at the center of the room, the chandeliers casting radiant light across her figure, Alexander by her side, David frozen mid-reaction, and the guests captivated, leaving the impression that Emily had not sought revenge through confrontation or spectacle, but through presence, intelligence, and the graceful reclamation of her own narrative, a story still unfolding beyond the frame, inviting viewers to witness the full journey of her resurgence and quiet triumph. Emily returned to her sunlit café the following morning, the smell of freshly ground coffee beans and warm pastries greeting her like old friends. She moved with calm precision, arranging cups and napkins with a kind of deliberate care that reflected her growing confidence and command over her surroundings. Outside, the crisp autumn air hinted at change, the leaves turning golden and drifting lazily along the sidewalks, mirroring the quiet transformation taking place within her. Alexander Blake arrived shortly after, entering unobtrusively, his presence steadying, grounding, yet hinting at influence beyond what was immediately visible. Emily greeted him with a polite smile, acknowledging his support without drawing attention, and they spoke briefly about potential business ventures and collaborations, their conversation laced with strategy and shared insight. Customers filled the cafe gradually, their chatter and laughter blending with the soft hum of coffee machines and the clinking of silverware, creating an atmosphere of normalcy and warmth, a stark contrast to the turbulence of her recent past. As she served drinks and interacted with patrons, Emily's mind remained alert, cataloging each interaction, noting who might be useful in the events to come, and planning her subtle, controlled comeback. She recalled fleeting images of David from the gala, the slight tension in his posture, the forced composure that could not mask the surprise in his eyes when confronted with her presence, and the revelation of Alexander's status. Emily allowed herself a small, satisfied smile, appreciating the quiet but undeniable shift in dynamics, the power balance recalibrating without a single word raised in anger. Her attention returned to the cafe, observing how minor adjustments in lighting, arrangement of tables, and placement of decorative items altered the energy of the space, reinforcing her authority in tangible, visible ways. Alexander commented occasionally on ideas for expansion, marketing, and community engagement, his voice calm, precise, reinforcing the sense of strategic partnership and trust. Emily felt the weight of control settling firmly on her shoulders, no longer tentative, no longer reactionary, but proactive, anticipatory, and composed. As the day progressed, she received messages confirming invitations to upcoming social events, networking opportunities, and professional gatherings where David's influence could be indirectly challenged through her competence and poise. Each message was a small reminder that her life was reweaving itself with threads of autonomy, elegance, and strategic insight. At one point, she paused by the window, watching passers-by, the sunlight casting long shadows across the polished wooden floor, and reflected briefly on how the past months had honed her patience, her observation skills, and her ability to enact influence without overt confrontation. A sense of quiet satisfaction filled her, the knowledge that she was not seeking revenge in the conventional sense, but asserting her value and power through presence, intelligence, and carefully measured actions. The scene concluded with Emily standing behind the counter, Alexander at a respectful distance, the cafe bustling around them, the morning light illuminating her composed expression and subtle smile, signaling to viewers that her journey of empowerment and silent reclamation of authority was unfolding steadily, a narrative of dignity, strategy, and calculated resurgence that promised further developments in the chapters yet to come. The late afternoon sun spilled golden light across the cafe, casting long shadows that stretched across the polished wooden floors as Emily arranged the last of the fresh pastries on the display counter. The aroma of roasted coffee beans mixed with the warm scent of baked goods, enveloping the space in a comforting embrace that contrasted with the intensity of the world outside. Customers wandered in and out, their voices a soft murmur beneath the gentle hum of the espresso machines and the occasional clink of cups and saucers. Emily moved with purposeful grace, her every gesture precise, deliberate, a silent declaration of the control she had cultivated over her environment. Alexander Blake entered quietly, his presence commanding yet understated, and she acknowledged him with a subtle nod, a shared understanding passing between them, without the need for words. They discussed upcoming business opportunities, strategic partnerships, and community events that could elevate Emily's profile, each conversation layered with intention and foresight. Outside, the autumn breeze stirred the golden leaves along the sidewalk, a reminder of the passage of time and the changes it brings. Emily paused by the window, observing the world beyond the glass, the street alive with movement, each detail meticulously catalogued in her mind, the foundation of her carefully constructed plans. She recalled fleeting glimpses of David, the faint tension in his posture, the awkwardness that could no longer be masked by superficial charm, and she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction, the realization that the power dynamics had shifted irrevocably. Throughout the café, small gestures, adjusting the position of a menu, the arrangement of flowers on a table, the placement of chairs, reinforced her presence and authority, subtle cues that spoke volumes to those who noticed. Alexander offered insights occasionally, his calm voice guiding decisions without overpowering, reinforcing the partnership that had quietly become a pillar of strength in her journey. Emily's focus remained sharp, aware of every sound, every glance, every subtle shift in the room, knowing that influence often lay in the quiet, in observation and measured action rather than overt confrontation. As the day unfolded, invitations arrived for professional gatherings and social events where her newfound stature and poise would allow her to engage, impress, and subtly recalibrate perceptions. Emily considered each opportunity carefully, weighing timing, presentation, and potential outcomes, her mind a map of strategies designed to ensure her growth and reinforce her autonomy. She moved among her customers with warmth and attention, each interaction a demonstration of competence and charm, her presence commanding respect and admiration without a single word raised in anger or resentment. The scene concluded with Emily standing at the center of her café, sunlight illuminating her figure, Alexander by her side, the space vibrant with activity, her calm, confident smile hinting at the careful, strategic steps yet to unfold in her journey of empowerment and quiet triumph, leaving viewers with the sense that every action, no matter how small, was part of a larger plan that would continue to evolve and reveal itself in the chapters ahead. Evening settled over the city as Emily prepared for the gala that would mark the next stage of her resurgence, the golden light from the setting sun reflecting off the windows and casting a warm glow across the room. She chose her attire carefully, a deep emerald gown that complemented her features and radiated quiet confidence, its subtle shimmer catching the fading sunlight. The soft scent of jasmine from a single bloom in her hair mingled with the crisp aroma of the evening air drifting in through the open balcony doors, grounding her senses as she took a deep, deliberate breath. Alexander Blake stood by her side, reviewing the final details of the evening, his calm presence a stabilizing force, a silent reminder that she was not alone in this journey. As Emily descended the staircase into the grand hall, she noted the glittering crowd, the soft hum of conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the carefully orchestrated arrangements of tables and lighting that created an atmosphere both elegant and intimate. Each step she took was deliberate, her posture straight, eyes scanning, registering, and analyzing, noting who might be an ally, who might underestimate her, and who would be pivotal in the unfolding events. She remembered the weeks leading up to this moment, the hours spent refining her café, building relationships, and strengthening her professional acumen, each effort a quiet but steady accumulation of power and presence. Across the room, David mingled with guests, his laughter a little too loud, his movements slightly forced, betraying the subtle unease she had anticipated. Emily approached strategically, greeting acquaintances with warm smiles, engaging in light conversation that conveyed charm and confidence, leaving an impression that was both memorable and controlled. Alexander's subtle gestures guided the flow of the evening, ensuring that Emily maintained visibility and influence without appearing overbearing, a delicate balance that highlighted her emergence as someone who commanded attention and respect effortlessly. The energy in the room shifted subtly as guests began to notice her poised demeanor, the intelligent spark in her eyes, and the quiet assurance in her movements. Emily engaged with key figures, exchanging insights, recommendations, and ideas, each interaction reinforcing her credibility and influence while remaining understated and graceful. She allowed herself a moment to reflect on the transformation she had undergone, the patient cultivation of her abilities, and the careful orchestration of opportunities that had led to this evening. The evening continued with Emily navigating the gala with finesse, her presence commanding attention while maintaining an air of elegance and approachability, a silent testament to her strategic foresight. The camera might linger on the subtle glances exchanged between Emily and Alexander, the reactions of the guests as they recognized her growing influence, and the slight tension in David's posture as the realization of her progress became apparent. As the gala reached its midpoint, Emily paused near a balcony, the city lights twinkling below, and allowed herself a controlled, confident smile, a quiet acknowledgement that her journey was unfolding exactly as she had envisioned, each calculated step bringing her closer to the full realization of her empowerment and the silent reclamation of the narrative that had once seemed beyond her control. The grand ballroom shimmered under the crystal chandeliers, every surface reflecting the soft glow of candlelight as Emily made her way through the crowd, her steps measured, purposeful, radiating quiet confidence. She noticed the subtle shifts in conversation as heads turned, whispers spreading like ripples through the room, all eyes following her with curiosity and a touch of admiration. David stood near the center, attempting to exude charm, but his laughter sounded slightly hollow, his composure beginning to waver under the weight of unspoken realization. Emily's gaze was steady, scanning the room, taking in details with a strategist's precision, noting who might be allies, who might underestimate her, and who would be significant in the subtle power play unfolding around her. Alexander Blake stayed slightly behind, his posture calm, attentive, his presence lending silent support, a reminder that Emily was no longer navigating this landscape alone. As Emily approached a group of influential guests, she exchanged polite greetings and engaging conversation, her voice confident, measured, and warm, leaving impressions of intelligence and poise. The tension heightened as David's eyes met hers, a flicker of unease passing through him as he realized the woman before him was no longer the person he thought he knew, that every subtle gesture, every controlled word, carried weight and influence. Emily moved with grace, allowing herself small, deliberate interactions that reinforced her authority without overt confrontation, each smile and nod calculated, creating an aura of composure and strategic intent. The guests began to notice, their attentions subtly shifting from David to Emily, the energy in the room recalibrating as her quiet power became undeniable. She exchanged a glance with Alexander, a silent signal, and as she did, she revealed to a small circle of colleagues the significant role he played in her life and her ventures, the revelation cascading through the room, altering perceptions and subtly undermining David's previously assumed dominance. The murmurs of realization spread, the atmosphere charged with the unspoken recognition of her ascent, the transformation from a quietly resilient woman to someone whose presence commanded respect and attention. Emily's movements were deliberate, each step, each gesture a display of controlled confidence, highlighting the careful planning and patience that had led to this moment. She spoke briefly with key individuals, offering insight and thoughtful commentary that reinforced her authority and acumen, while never appearing to overshadow anyone, a delicate balance that amplified her influence without aggressive assertion. The room seemed to shift around her, the once dominant presence of David now challenged not by confrontation, but by the undeniable evidence of her growth, her composure, and the subtle, strategic alliances she had cultivated. As the evening continued, Emily positioned herself at a central vantage point, observing, engaging, and allowing the realization of her strategic success to settle gently over the room, her calm smile hinting at the satisfaction of plans unfolding exactly as intended. The cameras might linger on her composed expression, the gentle glimmer of the chandelier light in her eyes, Alexander standing discreetly by her side, and David caught mid-reaction, a portrait of quiet power reclaimed, the silent triumph evident without a single word needing to be spoken, leaving viewers anticipating the next chapter of Emily's deliberate and dignified ascent. The room seemed to hold its breath as Emily and Alexander moved toward the center of the grand ballroom, the soft murmur of conversations fading into a subtle hush as her presence became unmistakable. Every eye followed her, sensing the quiet authority she carried, a contrast to the lingering tension radiating from David as he watched her approach. The chandeliers above cast a warm, inviting glow, illuminating her emerald gown as she moved with deliberate grace, each step a declaration of self-possession and calculated confidence. Guests began to notice the subtle signals, the way she engaged with influential figures with calm intelligence, sharing insight without overstepping, demonstrating that her power lay not in confrontation but in composed competence. David's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of realization crossing his face as he perceived the transformation that had taken place, that the woman he once underestimated now held sway over the room with quiet dominance. Emily paused briefly to exchange a few words with a small group of colleagues, her tone polite yet assertive, her gestures controlled, the kind of interaction that drew respect without demanding attention. Alexander remained close, a silent anchor, his subtle nods reinforcing the seamless choreography of their presence and interactions. Emily's eyes scanned the room, observing reactions, noting the unspoken acknowledgement of her rising influence, the way guests instinctively deferred to her opinions and attention, the subtle shift in energy that positioned her at the center of the social dynamic without a single overt move. She approached David with measured calm, her smile serene, and greeted him with the politest of acknowledgments, her words chosen carefully to convey dignity rather than challenge, yet each syllable underscored her command of the space and the situation. As the evening progressed, she strategically revealed Alexander's role to select guests, quietly underscoring her connection to influence and authority in a manner that left David visibly unsettled, his attempts to maintain composure faltering under the weight of this revelation. The ripple effect was immediate. Whispers spread, glances exchanged, the subtle recalibration of attention making her the focal point of the room while David's previous confidence waned. Emily's movements remained deliberate and composed, every gesture and interaction reinforcing her presence, her intelligence, and her strategic acumen, creating a tapestry of influence woven through poise, patience, and observation. She allowed herself a brief moment to appreciate the culmination of her careful planning, the quiet satisfaction of having achieved visibility and impact without resorting to overt displays of power or confrontation. The guests continued to circulate, engaging with her, seeking her insight, her perspective, drawn by the authenticity of her composure and the measured strength she radiated. Emily's gaze met David's one final time, a soft, knowing smile passing between them, unspoken yet charged with meaning, an acknowledgement that the balance had shifted, that she had reclaimed her narrative, her dignity, and her authority in a manner both subtle and undeniable. The cameras might linger on her serene expression, the elegant interplay of light across her features, Alexander's discreet yet supportive presence, and David's quiet realization, leaving viewers with the compelling sense that Emily's ascent, her quiet reclamation of power, and the strategic orchestration of her life were now fully in motion, a narrative of poised triumph unfolding before their eyes. The gala drew to a close, the soft glow of chandeliers dimming as Emily stood near the grand balcony, the city lights twinkling below like a field of stars. The evening air was cool against her skin, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine from the gardens beyond, grounding her in a moment of quiet reflection. She glanced across the room one last time, observing the subtle ripple of conversations, the way guests lingered in thought, clearly affected by the calm authority she had exuded throughout the night. David remained among the last to leave, his posture slightly slumped, a quiet acknowledgement in his eyes that the dynamic had shifted irreversibly, that Emily's composure, strategy, and presence had redefined the room and the relationships within it. Alexander stood beside her, offering a supportive smile, his calm presence a silent reinforcement of the partnership and understanding they had cultivated, their connection an unspoken but powerful statement of alliance and mutual respect. Emily allowed herself a small, contented sigh, feeling the culmination of months of patient effort, careful planning, and deliberate actions crystallize into a sense of achievement that needed no outward display or validation. Her thoughts drifted to the café, to the community she had nurtured, and to the life she was building, independent, dignified, and self-directed. She considered the moments of subtle influence, the small gestures, the precise timing of encounters, and how each had woven together to position her not only as someone respected and admired, but as someone fully in command of her own story. The night air shifted slightly, rustling the leaves in the nearby gardens, and Emily felt a quiet exhilaration, a recognition that she had moved beyond seeking approval or revenge, and instead had claimed something far more profound, her own agency and self-worth. Guests began to depart, exchanging farewells, their expressions hinting at intrigue, admiration, and respect for the manner in which she had navigated the evening with grace and insight. Emily watched them leave, her eyes reflecting the soft city lights, her mind clear and poised, acknowledging the significance of this chapter while already envisioning the future, the opportunities, and the continued journey of growth and empowerment. As the last guests trickled out, she and Alexander exchanged a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement that their plans and collaborations were just beginning, that the evening had not only solidified her presence, but laid the foundation for a narrative in which she would continue to lead with calm intelligence and unshakable composure. Emily stepped closer to the balcony railing, allowing the wind to lift strands of her hair, a quiet smile touching her lips as she looked out over the city, the stars above mirrored in the lights below, feeling fully herself in a way she had not before. The final moments of the gala captured her standing there, serene and radiant, a woman who had reclaimed her story and her life, the echo of her silent triumph lingering in the room long after she left, leaving viewers with their resonant understanding that true victory is measured not by confrontation, but by the quiet reclamation of one's own power and dignity.